Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, part number 2 for week number 11. We are going rotation number 141 down to 174, the next 16 games here with @Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the big man on campus. Jeff, welcome in, buddy. How you feeling?
Doing great, Drew. Good to be back with you. We have a much better card for me to talk about this week. You threw me into kind of the gauntlet here. I'm ready to break it all down.
Absolutely, man. We are talking the Saturday slate, Oklahoma State versus UCF, guys. And we'll go down to Nevada and Utah State in the Mountain West. We got some big-time matchups here. And, we'll get after it with the top of the card here. Big 12, Oklahoma State and UCF. Interesting handicap here, big man. -2 in the hook. That's the Cowboys as the road favorite. 64 the total in the bounce house.
Yeah, I really like Central Florida here, Drew. I bet this one pretty early. I grabbed the 3. I think this number is just screaming to take UCF. This is your prototypical letdown game, right? Oklahoma State, there's no secret what they want to do anymore, right? They threw it all out last week, beat Oklahoma. This is a good football team. We know that. We know Ollie Gordon's one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the country. Here's the thing. Look, UCF is not a great football team, but there's one thing they do well, and that's move the football. This is a better offense than Oklahoma State is. And look, Drew, the truth of the matter is Oklahoma State's defense, particularly against the pass, is wretched. I mean, this group is hard to watch. UCF has 9 plays this year over 50 yards. It's a big play offense. Look, the elephant in the room is the fact that UCF's not a good rush defense. I'm just hoping they can do a little something here. This number screams Oklahoma State to just kind of come in here and struggle. I think UCF gets the job done here. This is your prototypical letdown game. I'd be on the Knights.
Yeah, I agree with you. It does scream toward like something's up. I can't believe they weren't laying more. I mean, UCF has gotten off to a little bit of a tough start in Big 12 play, but you bring up some good points, man. Spot-wise, pointing towards the Knights can be a tough place to play as well. Mississippi and Georgia up next. In between the hedges here, it is the Georgia Bulldogs, -10.5-point home favorites, 58 being the total night game here, 7 o'clock on ESPN. We get Ole Miss in Georgia, big man.
Yeah, this is one of your kind of like top matchups of the week, right? You got, to me, the number 1 team in the country, even though the rankings may not say that. We're seeing this one kind of move around. It's 10.5, 11.5, really depends where you look. And look, go back to last week. I told really anyone that asked me on this game, Drew, or a game involving Georgia, if you can beat them down the field, you can stay in games against them. And we saw Mizzou do that. Luther Burden had a touchdown in the first quarter. Thea Weiss had almost 100 yards receiving. If you can throw the football, you can stay in the game against Georgia. And we know that Ole Miss can throw the football. Jackson Dart's a good quarterback. They need to establish the run a little bit too, though, because when you look at the one step-up game they've had, i.e. Alabama, Quinshon Judkins really struggled to move the football on the ground. They need to establish the run. You can't be one-dimensional. But Ole Miss is 6-2 against the number. Haven't faced Georgia in a long time. This is the big question about Lane Kiffin. We've seen James Franklin struggle with this. Can Lane Kiffin win a big game? This is a big game. They haven't faced them since 2016. It's time to put up or shut up. Is Ole Miss a top 10 team? I think they are. We know the offense can move the ball. We know they can attack the ball downfield. Got to score touchdowns. Got to take advantage of things. I looked at, if you're going to give me above 10.5, I'm probably going to lean with Ole Miss, but I don't really like fading Georgia. I think they're just that good. Again, if you made me bet it, I'd lean Ole Miss.
Like it, big man. Great breakdown there in Athens. We'll move to 3:30 Eastern here in the Big Ten. Minnesota and Purdue. We're seeing the Boilermakers -1 pretty much across the board. There's a pick 'em out there. And in fact, actually, if you like Purdue, Bet Online, sponsor of the show, betonline.ag. The game starts here. It's the only book on the street that I see -1 for Minnesota. So if you're like in the Boilermakers, you can put +1 in your pocket there at Bet Online. Either way, 46.5 being the total. We get the Golden Gophers and the Boilermakers here, big man.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, with these two teams, I kind of have a hard time, betting it over. I mean, offensively, both these teams are pretty bad. Purdue obviously kind of jumps out at you. The fact that they're 2-7. I thought a lot more of Ryan Walters. I thought this team would be a little bit better. I thought they had a pretty good quarterback situation with Hudson Card. I kind of liked what they had there, but I think their defensive numbers will jump out. The fact that they've been so bad, but you look at the last 3 games. I mean, they put Ohio State, Michigan, and Nebraska. 2 of those 3 teams are obviously very good offenses. This is obviously a game more, I think, on their level. To me, this game was first to 20 wins. I've been disappointed, though, with Purdue. I thought this team would be sniffly better. For that matter, I thought Minnesota would be much better as well. Minnesota's really struggled to score touchdowns this year. 51% touchdown rate. That is one of the worst marks in the country. That's in the bottom 15. Just really have struggled to score touchdowns. Purdue, their offense has struggled as well. I lean under 46.5. You got to start obviously keeping track of what's going on with weather nowadays. It's getting colder and colder. Obviously that's the Midwest. Keep an eye on that. But yeah, this is more like 21-17 type of game to me. 24-20. I like the under a little bit here.
At Jeff Nadu on Twitter. Great point, big man, in terms of checking the weather. It's coming November, guys, particularly up north. Speaking of that, Michigan and Penn State, arguably the matchup of the weekend here. -4 in the hook. That is the Wolverines as the road favorite. 45 being the total. This is an early kick, 12 noon Eastern. Michigan at Penn State here.
Yeah, this has all the makings of a classic, and I think we all thought that, Penn State, Ohio State was going to be the game. There's a couple of things, Drew, that I want to point out. I'll make this clear. This was the first game I bet this week. I grabbed 5.5 with Penn State at home. Okay. First of all, difference between this and the Ohio State game for Penn State. One, it's at home. That's a huge thing here. Number 2, while Michigan has Corum and Donovan Edwards, they don't have Marvin Harrison. Okay. That's a big difference here in the game, because when you look back to Ohio State, that was the difference in the game. Marvin Harrison abused Penn State. We also have to believe, at least this is, again, keyword believe. Again, it's not fact or what we think will happen. It's what we assume will happen. Penn State should be better offensively in front of their home crowd, throw the ball downfield a little bit more. And we have to also remember, okay, I always talk about this. Sometimes, like last week, Texas, Kansas State. I thought the difference in the game was touchdowns to field goals. Texas very poor in the red zone. K-State was very good in the red zone. Both these teams very good in the red zone. But we forget, this Penn State defense, it's not like Michigan is a significantly better defense than Penn State. Penn State's a top 3 defense as well. I think this is a 3-4 point game either way. You're going to give me above 4. I think value is very much in the home dog. I think we finally see James Franklin break through. And then all of a sudden, we got some real question marks in the Big Ten and in the national picture. And I think a lot of people after this weekend are going to be smiling a little bit, because I think a lot of people over the last couple of weeks are beginning to hate Michigan football a little bit. Look, do I think the story is a little bit overblown? Absolutely. I think it's very hard to prove that individual had any reason to. He was there for Michigan business, but I think you have an insular individual who is a little bit much of a lunatic, and he got caught. That said, a lot of people hate Michigan right now. I think Michigan hangs around. This game's too close to call. Give me Penn State.
Big man, great breakdown, man. You are a person with kind of well-rounded, I guess. You seem knowledgeable in a lot of different subjects. Guys, if you haven't checked out his podcast with the Mafia, even hits on Mexican cartels, it's called The Sit Down. It is a great one. YouTube, I believe, on podcast form too, big man. But what are your overall thoughts of this situation? Like, I mean, bringing into, as long as you're not using technology to steal signs, I don't even think it should kind of be allowed. Who's going to stop an alumni from going to games in looking at the sig? I think it's on the offense to change up their signals so people can't do that. What are your overall thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a standpoint of like advantages, I don't see much difference in this than scouting. Obviously, as long as you're not, doing stuff that breaks the rules. I'm very much a fine-tooth comb person. If it's not against the law, I'm always someone that very much lives close to that, right? If, we all speed, you just hope you don't get caught, right? I think there was surely fringe things going on here, like why this dude was doing this. I think one thing we have to wonder, and I would love to ask Connor Stallions this, is why exactly this is the type of work he's into. Because to me, he comes across as a very good researcher, someone who has a lot of talents, and I feel like he should use them, especially with a military background, for a little bit more, as opposed to just writing 5,000-page manifestos about what the future of Michigan football looks like. I also have to wonder about, and look, it's really none of my business, but I wonder where his money comes from. He lives in a nearly $500,000 home with no redeemable career. I don't know. I'm curious about that. Where did that money come from? I'm curious, but yeah, I don't, nothing criminally wrong here. I'm just wondering kind of a little bit more about him. His LinkedIn page is quite interesting. He essentially talks about that his goal is to, whatever he's doing, whoever the enemy is, it's to get as much information as possible about them. If I were Connor Stallions, my advice would be to take some interviews and get into the PI business. I think he'd be incredibly good at that, some sort of investigation work. I think he'd be very good there. But I will say, I think it's incredibly honest of him to not say a word to anybody. If you notice, he declined to cooperate or talk about this. In the words, the old Gambino crime family, Bonanno crime family would have loved him in terms of they didn't have to worry about him when it comes to in the box. He didn't fold under questioning, as they would say in Goodfellas.
Getting back to the games here, big man. Temple and South Florida up next, 12 noon Eastern. USF, the Bulls -7 as the home favorite. A full touchdown across the board, 67 or 68 being the total. We get your Temple Owls heading to the state of Florida. What are you liking in Raymond James, if anything?
Yeah, one thing that I've really enjoyed betting this year, because we haven't had a lot of like conferences or really high scoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
The AAC has been fun. There's 4 or 5 teams that just don't stop anybody, and they just, last week, South Florida, 59-52 at Memphis was one of the plays I had. I bet the over in that one.
Nice.
This South Florida team, man, is dreadful on defense. They can't stop anybody. And they're also quite a good offense. Byron Brown has been a good quarterback for them. They can move the football downfield. They've been good in the red zone. They score a lot of points. And you look at on the other side, Temple, they're not much better defensively. They got EJ Warner back, their gunslinger quarterback. Both these teams, I don't really see much issue in moving the football. Both these groups just have the ability to move it, and they don't really stop anybody. You also look at South Florida. This group has 7 plays of 50 yards or more, kind of hidden. You don't really think of them as a big play offense, but whenever your defensive coordinator is Todd Orlando, I think you always have to realize you're probably going to give up 40-plus points a game. How he still has a job, you talk about a guy that should be arrested for theft, highway robbery, grand theft auto, attempted robbery, whatever robbery definition is, he should be arrested for it because he's been stealing money the last 5 years. I like the over in this game.
Moving down the list here, Texas State and Coastal Carolina, 153, 154, 3:30 Eastern, -1 in the hook, -2. That's the Texas State Bobcats on the road, 58.5 being the total. The Chanticleers might be without their quarterback here, big man. Do you like anything Texas State and Coastal Carolina?
Yeah, they've been a weird team. They had against Marshall, Jared Guest was the quarterback, and then against Old Dominion, Ethan Vasco was the quarterback. Ethan Vasco is like a dual threat quarterback at 170 yards on the ground. ODU just couldn't stop it. Who is a quarterback this week? I don't know. That said, whoever's a quarterback, they're going to move the ball. We know Texas State at times struggle to stop anybody. I'll tell you what, man, this Texas State team's good. I've said that since the beginning of the year. I remember I have a Patreon. I remember telling people this offense is going to be a 40-plus point offense. This is what they do. GJ Kinney's awesome. They play fast. We know they have the quarterback they always have, TJ Finley. He was supremely efficient last week. Until Texas State shows me that they can't get the job done, I wouldn't have any interest in fading them. Texas State's been pretty good to me all season. And with some of the issues at quarterback and just kind of the overall defensive stuff, I'm going to lean on Texas State here. I like this team, and they've been good to me all year.
Staying in the Sun Belt, guys. 155, 156, 2 o'clock Eastern. App State at Georgia State. 60.5 being the total. -2 across the board. That's the Georgia State Panthers in downtown Atlanta, big man.
Yeah, Georgia State's eligible for a bowl already. They qualified, I believe, last week. App State's still trying to get the bowl eligibility. Two just solid teams in the Sun Belt. Not groups that are going to win this conference this season, but you're just two solid teams. We've talked about Georgia State's quarterback play at times. This isn't a vintage App State group, but I'll tell you what, I mean, this is really just kind of a coin flip to me. I'd probably give, a slight advantage to Georgia State because they're at home, but I didn't have any interest in the game. Both these teams give up about 28 a game. App State's a little bit better on offense, but I'll wage the fact that Georgia State being at home kind of cancels that out. This is a coin flip to me. I lean Georgia State, but wouldn't play it.
Staying in the Fun Belt, up next, 7 o'clock Eastern in Huntington, West Virginia. Marshall hosting Georgia Southern. We're seeing Southern -2 in the hook as the road favorite. 56.5 being the total. This Southern team's pretty good. Marshall, I don't know. They've been hit or miss here. I like Georgia Southern, big man. Do you like anything here?
Well, the problem that Georgia Southern has is they just can't stop anybody. And that said, I mean, I don't know what happened to this Marshall offense, but I mean, they have been completely lost recently. I mean, you look at the last 3 games, they've scored 24 points combined in 3 games. For anyone that's not good with math, that's 8 points a game. That's just not good. I don't really know where else to go with them. I think this is just one of your simple cases of not being able to keep up, Drew. That would be kind of my thought. Georgia Southern has, again, struggled against some of the good teams in this conference because they can't stop anybody, i.e. Texas State and the James Madison games. But I don't have any reason to believe that that Marshall can move the ball. Look, this is obviously a more soft defense to move the ball on, but I don't know if they're just not capable of moving the ball. I don't really know why this is under a touchdown. I think Marshall's incredibly good home field. In fact, this is under 3. I would lean with Georgia Southern. In fact, you look at the betting splits here, Drew, 50-50 bets, but almost 70% of the actual money is on Georgia Southern. I think they keep pace and try to stay alive in winning this conference. Marshall's, I think, just kind of fallen by the wayside, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. Guys, towards the Eagles of Georgia Southern. Big 12 up next, Texas Tech and Kansas. This is a pretty sleeper, good matchup here. -3 in the hook, big man. That is the Jayhawks as the home favorite, 62 being the total. Lance Leopold and company. This Kansas team's pretty good. I like them here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The mark of a good team is avoiding a letdown, right? You beat Oklahoma. Contrary thought is you'd go and struggle against Iowa State, kind of a pesky little team, similar to the Oklahoma State matchup this week. They're trying to avoid what Kansas did avoid. Mm-hmm. But you're right. I mean, Kansas football, he's not going to win any awards, but you got to give Jason Bean some credit, man. I mean, this guy's been the ultimate backup quarterback. And that's why if you're a Kansas guy, you like this offense, because if Jaden Daniels comes back, if he goes out, you're going to come right in and he can score. It's kind of like Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton came right in last year, and when they're up 40, he can put points on a board still and maybe hit an over for you or a team total over. Jason Bean's been really good. Devin Neal's a great running back. I've been pretty impressed with this defense. Look, they're not world beaters, but they've done a nice job. I agree. Texas Tech's always just that kind of middling Big 12 group. They don't do real well on the defensive end. I backed them once or twice early in the season, made some money, but that's pretty much it, I think, for them. I think anything under probably 4 or 5, I would lean on Kansas here, but it didn't ultimately get there for me. But I hear your point. Kansas has been quite solid. I'll tell you what, Drew, real quick, just to keep in mind, one other thing you want to keep in mind as we get closer and closer to the end, 3 games left for these teams. You look at Texas Tech. They have this game next week, and then they end the season at Texas. If Texas Tech want to go to a bowl game, this is a must-win. I mean, you got to try to get it out of the way. That the rubber's meeting the road here late in the season. Texas is probably not going to be much of a winnable game. Kind of want to try to find a way to get your win here, or 2 wins here. They need 2 to get bowl eligible. Big game for Tech.
Oh, good point. Yeah, to become bowl eligible. And what about, big man? I know you're a big college basketball guy as well. Basketball football combo. Where's Kansas starting to rate, man? In terms of programs, could they be the best in the country? Like adding the 2 up?
Programs or right now?
Like right now, basketball, football,
Mhm.
how good the teams are. I
Okay.
feel like I don't know if there's a better combo out there.
In this game, you mean?
Just Kansas men's basketball is what, ranked number 1 in the country, and then now their football team's gonna.
Oh, right. Okay, I got what you're saying. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, you got to think a little. I think Texas would be a quite good one.
Okay,
I think Texas quite good. Purdue's bad football, good basketball. Villanova, we don't care about them in football. Good in basketball. Duke, decent. I'm trying to think. Georgia, they're bad basketball. Who else do we have? Houston, great. I think Houston's the best team in the country. Bad football. Trying to think of who else on this. Alabama. Alabama's a good one. I think really solid. Ohio State, Michigan, both average basketball, good football. Yeah, I think Kansas is a good one, Drew. Kentucky, maybe. They're kind of just good on both. I would say probably either Texas or Kansas.
Yeah, thanks for that, Carolina jackpottage. We'll move down the list here. Big Ten. Guys, if you're watching on replay on YouTube, every game on the board, let us know below in the comments who you think the best combo is. Also, wherever you're downloading your podcasts at, Apple, Spotify, wherever, every game on the board. Please like and subscribe. We got Northwestern and Wisconsin. Badgers, minus 10-point home favorites, 42.5 the total here in the Big Ten.
Yeah, just not one that I'm real excited about, Drew. And look, this is kind of the bottom of the barrel, man. I mean, you look at Indiana. I mean, what a win last week. Wisconsin's just not very good without Mordecai. I don't know if they're that good with Mordecai, but you got to give Indiana some credit. Defensively, they've really rallied and played for their coaches here. And I'll tell you what, I mean, Northwestern's been better than I thought they would. Last week was just a disaster. I see a total in the 40s. I thought we'd see a total in the 30s, quite frankly. 2 teams that you just don't really have much interest in watching play offense, especially with the quarterback situation. Wisconsin doesn't have many big plays this year. Northwestern isn't much further. I don't have any interest in this game from a betting standpoint. I guess slightest of leans to the under, but that's pretty much it.
Big man, we get a 28 as the total right now as we're talking Wednesday afternoon. Rutgers at Iowa, literally 28, -1. That's the Iowa Hawkeyes at home. 4 touchdowns. That's the total here. Any interest in this one?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look, but I'd have to think this is one of the lowest totals I've ever seen in college.
This is the lowest I've ever seen. Yeah. I've never seen it this low.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much on the total. I'd probably feel like either way, I don't think you can go wrong with this game. I won't be playing the total. I'd lean Rutgers though. I think kind of one of the major differences is Rutgers is pretty good in the red zone. I was not. I was one of the worst teams in the country, quite honestly, in the red zone. Another game I don't have much interest in. I'd probably just hope that this is like 14-10, 17-10, 10-7. 14-3. I don't know. Who knows? I wouldn't bet this game with my worst enemy's money. Pass.
Old Dominion and Liberty up next, 1:00 Eastern. Flames minus 13.5-point home favorites, 59 being the total. We get the Monarchs and the Flames, big man.
Yeah, I mean, Liberty just continues to impress. I mean, the truth though is, I mean, they played one of the most laughable schedules you can see, Drew. I mean, there's nothing here. I'll say this. I mean, this is a double-digit number. Old Dominion's been good against the number all season. The only reason they didn't cover last week is because it was a coin flip. I think it was 1.5 the number against Coastal. You're giving a lot of points to Old Dominion. That said, I'm not really sure how Old Dominion's covered so many numbers. They're horrible in the red zone. They don't really have any playmakers. They just are pretty solid on the defensive end and maybe break a big play once in a while. All in all, I like both teams. I like Liberty a lot. That quarterback is tough. They have a good defense. They're great in the red zone. Old Dominion is not, and I think they're going to have to really try to break one or two here. It's kind of a stay away game for me. I kind of can make a case for both sides. I guess slightest of leans to taking the points, anything above 2 touchdowns. But other than that, it won't be a game I'll be betting on.
Shout out to our sponsors of the show, betonline.ag. If you're looking for a sports book, check out betonline.ag. The game starts here, and we got Viva Tequila Seltzer, vivatequilaseltzer.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you see them behind me, 4 flavors, 4.5% ABV, 0 sugar. You can get it shipped to your house, guys. vivatequilaseltzer.com. New Mexico and Boise State, just a couple games left here. -26, that's the Broncos as the home favorite, 59.5 or 60 being the total on the blue turf, Boise, Idaho, big man.
Yeah, I don't think many people would have said it early in the season that New Mexico is one of the worst teams in the country, but they really showed and felt like they are. I mean, this team is, I don't really know how to describe. I mean, last 4 games, they've allowed 52 to San Jose, 21 to a bad Hawaii team, 34 to Nevada, and 56 to the running Rebels of UNLV. Now you get Boise, who, look, this isn't a vintage Boise team, but I got to tell you, I mean, I thought they looked really good last week against Fresno. Boise just can't seem to find a way to win these close games. That's kind of been the difference for them over recently. I think really for them right now, the goal is bowl eligibility. This is going to be a win. It's really a question of how many points you could put on a board. I don't love Boise on defense, so it's hard for me to play a number that high. I also don't know the status of Ashton Ginty, their running back. George Olani's a good player, but I want kind of both players there. I don't know. Another one that I didn't love here due to the fact that, I just don't think this is a vintage Boise team. But one thing, if you're looking to lay the number, Boise's a 25th in the country in touchdown rate. You need touchdowns when you're laying numbers like this. You only get so many possessions. But one thing has been clear. I mean, Boise hasn't struggled moving the football. That's the one common goal with them. And New Mexico can't stop anybody. So I'd probably look towards like a team total over here with Boise State. What do we have a number at here on that? 42.5. Wow, pretty high. That said, I don't see any reason to think it would be any different. Yeah, I lean that way, but I'm probably not going to play it.
169, 170 up next, 11 a.m. Pacific kick. A good one here in the Conference of Champions, BMOC, Arizona and Colorado. We are seeing the Wildcats -10.5 point road favorites, 55 being the total in Boulder.
Yeah, I don't I'm trying to understand this. Can you tell me the time on this game again?
2:00 Eastern time.
Okay,
I'm not sure if Colorado's Mountain or Pacific though.
Either way, it's 12 or
Yeah.
11. Yeah, weird. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, Drew, I don't want to pile on Colorado, but I mean, I'm going to. I mean, isn't this kind of what we thought they'd be? Like, why did we have to hear all that nonsense at the beginning of the season about how great they were and how Shedeur was a Heisman Trophy candidate? Like, shut up. Like, what are we talking about? Everybody and their mother knew this was a 4-win team, and that's exactly where they're going to stay. They're not going to win another game. I can't bet on them. I just can't do it. So the question is, whenever Colorado plays, most teams in this conference are very good at getting to the quarterback. This is just a good league for good defensive lines. So I feel like for Arizona, you ask yourself, can they get to the quarterback? Yes. I mean, 2.5 sacks a game doesn't bode well for Colorado because they have one of the worst offensive lines in the country. Defensively, we know they're a complete disaster. Arizona is a group that can run the football. They can throw the football. They're better passing than a running team. But this Arizona team continues to answer the bell, man. I mean, you put up 27 last week on UCLA. I mean, UCLA is a legit defense, man. Noah Fifita has been awesome. This group's solid, man. I like Arizona. I don't do these much, but to feel a little bit more comfortable about this one, I feel like this would be a great teaser spot. You may be finding something else at 12 or 1 or 2 that maybe compare with this, get this below not only 10, but also 7. But all in all, I just don't know that it really matters. I wonder where Colorado's head's at in this game. And Arizona's 8-1 against the number, so I don't think there's a real issue with laying it. They have been sparkling for the most part as a favorite recently.
Sure. 2 games left, Iowa State and BYU. One of the nightcaps here, 10:15 Eastern, -7.5. Actually, if you are liking the road favorite here, guys, Iowa State, Bet Online showing -7, but pretty much 7.5 or 8 across the board. That's the Cyclones as the road favorite. 41.5 being the total. So Iowa State off of that loss to Kansas we already talked about, heading to Provo, Utah here to face BYU.
Yeah, I just kind of had this one as a 10-point plus victory. Generally, when Iowa State wins, it's generally by more than 10. They've done a nice job against the bad teams in this conference. And I think at this point, BYU is a bad team in this conference. I mean, this offense is really fallen off a cliff over the last 4 games, very similar to Marshall. I mean, they just can't move the ball. Their analytical numbers are real bad, like some of their advanced numbers I've noticed. I don't include that much. I'm not one of these like guys that sits here and says, hey, this team is their GIDDP 83. I don't do that. I don't know what any of it means. I just go rudimentary and explain it. BYU can't move the ball. Iowa State, always a good defensive team. Their offense has actually been pretty good this year for the most part. And like I said, against teams they should take care of, they've been able to do it. I think you also have to ask yourself, like, BYU, it's not like they faced a lot of great teams. I mean, they scored 11 against TCU, 7 against West Virginia. Remember Sam Houston, 14 points. I mean, yeah, I think Iowa State wins by double digits here.
Last game up, 173, 174. Then we'll get a best bet here from at Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the big man on campus. 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. Nevada and Utah State, BMOC, -16 in the hook. That is Utah State is the home favorite, 56 being the total in this Mountain West matchup.
Yeah, I like the only way I'd play Utah State is with their team total. They're not a group that I want to back defensively. They never are. That's just not how Blake Anderson teams are really kind of out there. They give up 33 points a game. You can't back them. They score 35 points a game, and I'm really just asking them for them to get to their average here. One reason this offense is so good, Drew, the Utah State Aggies are number 1 in America in plays from scrimmage of 50 yards or more. They have 11 plays from scrimmage of 50 yards or more. They also have 6 plays of 60 yards or more and 3 plays of 70 yards or more from scrimmage. So big play offense. Nevada, struggling pass defense, struggling defense in general. I don't know. And 56.5 schemed a bit low as well, if we're being honest. I don't think either of these teams can stop anybody. But I would probably center along the Utah State team total over 36.5. I really just need for them to get to their average here.
Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadu, always bringing the heat here on every game on the board. He's got the Sit Down podcast. He's a college basketball bettor, knows the sport as good as anybody, obviously knows his college football here. We got a best bet coming your way. Again, shout out to Viva Tequila Seltzer, vivatequilaseltzer.com. Get it shipped to your house. 4.5% ABV, 0 sugar, and Bet Online, betonline.ag. The game starts here. Looking for a sports book, check out betonline.ag. Big man, throw it over to you. Best bet time. You liking anything a little bit more than the others here?
Yeah, and by the way, check out Bet Online. One of my favorite books, for years. I've been betting with Bet Online for a long time. And by the way, Drew, college basketball has been good to me to start the season. I hope it's been good to you. It's only a couple of days in, but it's been fun so far. For me, I am going to go back to a game that we talked about. I'm going to go over 67.5, Temple, South Florida. Temple is just not very good defensively under Stan Drayton. EJ Warner back is big news for them. EJ's been really, since he came into Temple, kind of a guy no one thought, he kind of came out of nowhere, but he's been elite, man. I mean, good completion percentage, 11 touchdowns against conference opponents. He came out last week and torched Navy. He torched UTSA before his injury. When he plays, they score points. They just do. You put up South Florida, this offense has no issue moving the ball as well. Byron Brown's been a good dual threat quarterback for them, has over 2,000 yards, 75 touchdowns. They're scoring over 30 points a game themselves. And this was one of the worst defenses in America, giving up 37 points a game. I think we see a real track meet down in Tampa. I believe that's where they play. I like the over in this game. You're muted.
Oh, thanks for that, Jeff. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, and we got 67 as the total. Temple, USF, over 67. That 67 is available, betonline.ag. And guys, check out at Jeff Nadu. I said college basketball. He knows his stuff. Am I seeing what you were 2-0 last night, 8-0 to start the season here, big man?
Correct.
Ooh, hot out the gate as well. Is that normal for you? I'm the type that's like, I go into college basketball a little slower, meaning like I don't
generally I do too. But night one, I saw a lot of games I liked. I'm big with laying big numbers. I don't have much issue with that. Last night I laid 30 plus with Creighton. I had a couple of big numbers in night one. It's just finding matchups where I can bet on high numbers with good teams against hard teams, and finding little doggies that I just think are too good. You look at last night, I grabbed Florida Gulf Coast, shoot a lot of threes. I think they could stay in the game that way. Had St. Thomas night one against Cal. When you do this long enough, like I have, you can kind of find teams that just are mismatches against others, and dogs that can kind of bark. So yeah, it's been a good start. I don't really care much about it due to the fact that we have like another 6+ months of this. So you have to really have the highs and the lows. Drew, I started the season once 0-9. So, I mean, it's all relative. It's very variance based.
Hey, well, you're 8-0 this year. So, hey, it's better to be hot out the gate than cold out the gate, I'm sure.
We'll take it.
Guys, you heard it there from at Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the big man on campus. Temple, USF over 67 is what we're going with for best bets. Guys, tomorrow we have Gabe Morency and Rob Vino on for part 3 and 4 to finish out every game on the board. So, Jeff, anything else before we shut this down?
No, as always, thank you for having me, Drew.
All right, thanks for coming on, buddy. Always good insight here. Guys, feel free to comment below on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast. Every game on the board. Thanks for tuning in. Cash those tickets.